You're listening to the Lightworkers Collective Podcast, Episode 1. Welcome to the Lightworkers Collective Podcast. I'm your host, Noémie, and I am so honored that you have pressed play today. I'm fascinated by the infinite ways by which our inner light shines out, and created this podcast to remind you of your own inner connection to all that is. My hope is that this episode will assist you in your personal spiritual journey. All you need to do is be open to receiving what is present here for your highest good. Thank you so much for listening. Now let's get started with today's episode. Hey beautiful soul, and welcome to the very first episode of the Lightworkers Collective Podcast. The past few weeks have been quite a whirlwind, and since I committed to birthing the podcast, honestly, my days have been filled with miracle after incredible thing, after serendipitous moment. It has been such a joy to be on this journey with you. And I am so honored and excited to have gathered so many of you beautiful souls together to create the container for this podcast, for the Lightworkers Collective. Now, it's been such an incredible experience, and I want to make sure that I thank each and every single one of you for volunteering and for sharing your voice. And it's honestly become such a beautiful co-creative project. And I especially want to thank you for sharing your voice for what was the trailer of the podcast, The Voices of the Collective. It was truly an honor to be able to gather all of you in this piece of magic. Now, this is the very first episode, and it seems fitting to start off by telling you what I mean when I say Lightworker, and that'll definitely set the tone and the context for the episodes to come. Now, put really simply, a Lightworker is any person who feels the call to be a light in the world, in whatever way that may seem fitting to them. So it could be as simple as deciding to live heart-centered lives, to follow one's values, or it can be a lot more involved, like dedicating your entire life's work to prayer or to healing arts and to helping others. Honestly, there's really not one way to be a light worker, and that's really what I want you to know right now. There's not one way to do this. There's no sets of rules to abide by. There are no tests to pass. There's no curriculum to study. There's no job to land. Now, people who identify with the term light worker are people who wish to bring light to the world. That's as simple as that. They wish to share their hearts, their souls. There's some people that I would call light workers that may have never heard of the term before, and that's absolutely okay. But one of the reasons that I like this term so much, and why I decided to call the podcast the Lightworkers Collective, is that the term in and of itself right now is non-denominational. That's a hard word to say. Is non-denominational, and honestly, I hope it stays that way. I hope that over time it really becomes synonymous with someone who's well-meaning, who's loving, heart-centered, ethical, compassionate, connected, someone who's helpful, someone who's kind, and someone who's honest with themselves. So I wanted you to know that from the get-go. A lightworker isn't someone who abides by some obscure or rigid new 21st century belief system. Not at all. Far from it. A lightworker is a person who listens to their heart, someone who trusts their inherent connection to the divine, and who feels the call to step up to what that truth means in their life, and in whatever way that truth shows up for them. And here we're a collective. We're a collective of light workers. We're a group of souls from all over the world gathered in this sacred space. We're souls with different backgrounds, whether they be cultural or religious, and we all have very unique paths and callings as well. We're an incredibly complex mosaic of humanity, And honestly, I am so proud of that. I'm so humbled by it as well. Because we're all intrinsically linked through our deep belief system in something more, in something greater than ourselves, in something benevolent and expansive. And what that something is, it may vary from person to person, and that's totally okay. That's the whole point, actually, for us all to be different, to be unique, to be multifaceted, to be complex, for each and every single one of us to be human in whatever form and in whatever frequency and unique perception that may be. Each person is human. So I invite you to keep an open mind and an open heart as you listen to the episodes that are going to follow and to this show in general. I know that if you're here, you already know how to do just that. And in doing so, I know that you're going to find some beautiful, beautiful surprises along the way. And I'm so excited for what's to come. Now, I want to keep this episode fairly short, and I'm going to stop here. But before you go on to the next thing and then the next thing after that, what I would love is for you to take a moment and to pause and to reflect on what that term means to you. What does Lightworker mean to you? And if you were to think of the light in your heart, in your soul, the love in your heart, in your soul, who you are as a being, as an eternal being, as a child of God or of the universe, however those words work for you. What does sharing your light mean? What does it mean in your life? What does it mean to your imagination? And how can you bring more of your light, of your love to this world? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of our Lightworkers Collective tune, and I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to drop into your heart and to really think about it. So of course, if you're multitasking, this may not be the best time to do this, but if you can spend those 20 seconds just with yourself and your heart, do it now. For this is a powerful exercise, an important exercise in recognizing your own divinity, in recognizing your own importance, the importance of your love, the importance of who you are. And I know how important you are, but the key really is in knowing that for our own selves. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for sticking till the very end of the first episode of the Lightworkers Collective Podcast. I am overjoyed. I honestly am. I am trying to keep my cool and keep my voice steady so that I'm not screaming in your ear. But really, I'm so happy that I'm doing this. I'm so happy that you're part of it. And I have some really great conversations up ahead to share with you with some fellow lightworkers. We're going to be talking about all sorts of different things. I've already recorded a few and they are so exciting. You're in for a treat. You really are. Now, I know it's only the first episode of the Lightworkers Collective Podcast, but I wanted to plant a seed, and that is, if you've been enjoying the whole experience of being part of the collective and the trailer and being part of that and this very first episode, feel free to leave an iTunes review. I would be so grateful. I am only one of the many of the collective, and I can't do this alone. It actually makes a big difference because that's how we connect to the others of the collective. wherever they are all over the world. And having the show be more discoverable is a really, really helpful way to make sure that it gets into their hands. I would also love to hear from you, so it doesn't have to be solely through an iTunes review. It can also be on social media. So for those of you that are not connected to me on social yet, you can find the Lightworkers Collective Podcast under the handle at the.lightworkers.collective on both Instagram and Facebook. I would love to hear your experiences and your understanding of what Lightworker means to you.